All right, I'm sharing my screen now, and I'm having the trouble with Zoom again. Okay, cool. It's good now. All right, so I was playing around with this earlier, so I'll try to get it back to where we were before I started messing things up, which is based on our last class. Let's delete all of this. I was doing some experiment to see if I can show you guys a couple of things. Let's delete this. So there's another class happening right after this, which means I only have 1 hour to show you the things I wanted to say. I'm not entirely satisfied with how far we've come in the object-oriented classes, but we don't have all the time in the world to be able to do everything we are supposed to do. So I'm just going to, what I can do is to possibly, honestly, I'm not sure if I can fully promise this, is to possibly make a couple of more recordings and talk about the things I feel like we need to mention in object-oriented programming. But you'll be starting Laravel, I think, later this week with Priska, and that means you will really be diving into the deep end of object-oriented programming. So I'll do my best to keep sending you some resources, possibly some recordings, to just sharpen your object-oriented skills. And I would also encourage that on your own time, try to practice as much as possible with OOP. Because one of the issues with using frameworks without fully understanding, or at least to an extent, having a good understanding of object-oriented programming is you then know the framework without really knowing the language well. Okay, so that's why it's important not to fall into the mistake of always using frameworks and not actually understanding the language. If you understand object-oriented programming with vanilla PHP, you will be able to adapt to any framework and be able to work with the framework. Okay, let me revert this also. I was adding a couple of more configurations in there. Let me do my best to revert that back to where we stopped, which is here. There we go. Okay, I think this is where we stopped the last time. What we have done is to, sort of use our classes to validate user input, create a new user, and add the user to a database, and then return a response back. That's all well and good, but there are a couple of things we need to clean up. And one of them is how we have been importing our classes. While this works, it doesn't make sense to always have to come here and specifically import the class that you want. In a small project like this, that's fine. You can always do that in a practice project. You can just import the specific files that you need. There are there are possibly better ways to do this, which is to just tell the composer.json file to basically import classes that have specific namespaces. Okay, so I have a documentation open here that sort of explains to you how importing using composer.json works. I would highly recommend that you at least skim through this particular page and just go through it. But in our own case right now, this is what we'll be attempting to use to basically import all these files, without needing to mention their names specifically. Right. So try as much as possible to go through this document and try and understand what it says, especially in terms of using PSR4 or PSR0. And I think you can also use class names, or there is also the files, which we've been using all along, you know. Yeah, so let's just start making things a little bit better. So I will start with the helper. At the moment, our helper it's a class. That's not really necessarily appropriate or necessary to have your helper being a class. Then you have to create the instance of the class, and you have all of that shouldn't be the case. Okay. So what I would do is to create a new folder, which I think I already did. Okay, I already did. I forgot to delete that. Anyway, create a new folder and put my helper functions in there. Let's take this out for now. So I would explain what that means. And that's that sometimes your ID would ask you to put certain things in there. For example, my ID is telling me to put this tag in here, which means this particular function, this particular DD function does not return anything. Okay. But we've had this DD function before. We had it in here. Okay, so what I'm doing now is to move it from being a class into just being a single function in here. And by the way, we could also add other things in here. We could say if the function, so the reason why we're adding the if statement is we don't want the function being loaded multiple times. We want to know if it has been loaded already. If it has been loaded, there's no point in loading it again. If it has not been loaded, then load the function in. Okay, so we could also create a redirect function, which is something I do very well in most of the projects that I do. And in this case, will just be, basically returning. By the way, I think this will have a return, not for it. It doesn't have a return. It's just the header function. So header location. I can't remember the redirect thing that we do. I think it's location, redirect, header. Who knows how to redirect to a
Header bracket location.
yeah, good, thanks. There we go. Okay. And then you put I don't need to be var, I don't need to be address. Let's just assume that this is correct because I'm not going to be testing it. Okay, so we could also have this in here. So now we could basically go into our composer file and load that specific file and say helpers. I think it's called functions.php. So we've loaded that in. Every time we make changes to this file, we need to dump autoload so that it reloads the files that we just added. So what I would do is to firstly try to use this. Let's come here and just do a DD of this. Do the DD of that because now we've added a DD and it should be available on this page. Yep, I think it is. So if I refresh this page and I try to run the code now, index.php, yep, it does produce what we expect it to produce. So this makes things a bit easier and cleaner because now I don't have to create the helper class up here. I can just DD all of this here and it should work properly. So I'll then go back into all of my code and search for, oh, apparently that's the only way I have it. That's the only place I have it. That's great, I guess. Okay. Yeah, I think that's the only place I'm using it. Yep. It seems to be the only place I'm using it. Okay, anyway, yeah, so it makes things easier that I now have this here to print things out instead of having to create a new class just to use an helper function. So that's the first thing I would like to tell you. Now, the second thing I wanted to mention would be the PSR loading. Most IDs will probably give you some sort of hints on how to write this out. So what we're going to be doing, again, you can look at the documentation. I was looking at it earlier. So you could look at this and try to understand how the class mapping works and so on. So what I would be doing is to try and say, load everything inside a folder called app. It could be anything, by the way. You could use anything and look for, right, load everything inside the folder app and map it such that when it is automatically available when I create a new instance of anything inside that folder. So I'm going to attempt to do this now. I'll go in here and create a new folder, call it app. It's necessary to have the folder because I don't want to map the entire thing inside the root folder. So I'm going to create a folder to hold the specific things that I want to auto load. And this is applicable in case you're working on a large project that has a lot of files in the root folder that does not necessarily need to be automatically loaded. Okay, so now I'm moving everything in the app folder. I have my, and then I'll put the namespace in there. I think it's capital APP. Okay. And then I'll come in here and also add the namespace. Why do you have a ZN? That's odd. And then here I would also have a namespace app. And that's because obviously they are in the app folder. That's why I'm adding this as the namespace. All right, so if I go back to the index, it can't find these guys anymore because they are no longer here. So I would say use app, and then I don't think I think it's validator. Okay, now that is found because I've now imported that, and I'll say use app. I think that's database, and that's also fine now. So yeah, that also, I think user needs to be loaded too. So let's say use user. Okay. And then obviously I will need to remove this slash here so that user becomes also loaded in there. I'll go back to and remove everything from here because now, so it just makes things cleaner. So now I'm just loading a single file, my helper file, and I'm also loading everything inside the root folder app, inside the app folder. Okay. Another thing I wanted to explain to you regarding using composer.json is I was saying earlier in one of our classes that it doesn't make sense to try and write validation and all of those things manually, because there is somebody out there who has had the same problem you're having and has written a class or some package that would help you to validate things very easily and quickly. So there are things we call packages that are available for you to install in your project and to work with. I think maybe one example would be validator package for PHP. That's PHP. So this is one example on packages. You can actually work on your own packages too and make them available on packages. So somebody has written this. One of the things you need to look out for is when this was written and if it is being managed and maintained. For example, I will say that this was last updated this year. I think this is last month, which is a very reasonable thing to have. It means you can use this and it's being maintained and managed. So if you want to install a package, what you just do is to follow the instructions. In my old case, it's just to run the composer install, like so. You can do it this way, or you can manually add it to the composer the JSON file here. So I'll do both for you. I will install it running the composer.install file, and it will update this file for me. You will see it now says there is one file that is required for this project. So it is the package I just installed now. Another thing you can do again, you can write this yourself instead of relying on the install thing to do it for you. To do it for you. So that's how to install packages. You can create your own package and publish it. You can browse through packages. Don't forget, when you're using packages, make sure you use um manage packages that are currently being managed and updated, not old packages that are out of date that could be a security risk to your project. Yeah, so that's another thing I wanted to mention. Okay, so let's do one last thing before we sort of. Okay, go on, Hyperion. You have a question.
Oh, yes, please. Please, can you please explain what packages are to a layman? Like, is it like a set of functions or something like
Right. So a package will literally be like an already made set of classes that you can then bring into your own project and use for your project. So if many of them are free for you to explore. So I'll go into this particular repository. You will see that it's just a bunch of PHP files that has been created by this person. Let's go into the. So you will see it's just a bunch of PHP files that has been created. It's like creating your own, like we've created our classes here, and now we are importing these classes and using them. So this person has gone ahead to create a lot of classes that would be useful in validating things and has now made it available as a package. When you install that package, it becomes available in your vendor folder. So I think this is a package I just installed. What that means is I can then do something like use, I don't know what it's called, but hopefully I can find it. It's called respect or something. Yeah, so I can then use this in my own project. Instead of creating my own validator, I can use the respect thing in my own project. You see that it's still, it still recognizes that, yeah, there is something called validator in here. And then you can even go in there to see what they've done. This is what the class the person has written now and how they've decided to, write their own validation. You can explore it, you can see how it's done. But a package is just a bunch of classes or a bunch of files that has been created and made available for you to import into your own projects. And this is not just a PHP thing. Other languages have this too. NPM is for JavaScript. Ruby has its own too. I think Ruby is called gems, by the way. Ruby packages are called gems. Yeah, so I have a package here, which I'm not proud to show you, but I know I have a package here. Yeah, I don't even think it's public yet. But anyway, wait, it should be public. I did publish it as a public package. I think it's called currency converter. Now I want to really know why it's not being published. It's not showing here. Maybe my name is not correct. I'll check the name and um I'll just check it now. But anyway, that's what a package is. One of the most important things in becoming a better developer is to exploring things that have been written by others, which to be fair, I do that a lot. There is no project that I'll be involved in and I will not take the time to understand how others have done it. And sometimes that leads me to decide to do it myself. I'll give you one example. So there is a time I was working on a project and I needed to send emails from that project. While the person that worked on the project initially just used basic PHP mailer. Sorry, this shouldn't be open. I definitely need to edit this video then. Yeah, so this is one Ruby package that I wrote that helps me to scrape. I would definitely have to edit this. Helps me to just scrape data from specific websites. I wrote this a while ago. I didn't publish this one though. I couldn't publish it because it has some. Yeah, it's Hello World. This is the one I published, and I'm not sure why it's not showing. Maybe I removed it just to update it because I was doing some updates on it. Let's search for it again and see if I can find it this time. Where is it? Hello World currency. Is it currency? There we go. Yeah. Hello World currency, right? Yeah, that's it. Oh, it's currencies. Mine is currencies. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, this is it. Yeah, this is it. So, I can't believe people are using it. I didn't even finish it, so to say. But apparently people have been using it, 270 downloads. That's awesome. But anyway, that's what a package is. A package just basically allows you to write a bunch of classes. If I show you this is just like I think it's just a single file. Basically allows people to pull in currencies of the world and define what they want and use it. I didn't even had proper documentation. I was just playing around with it and I published it. And this was just this year. I think I need to update it now. Seeing people are using it. I can't believe people are using it. The other one I've written, I never really published it because I was worried that they will use it for what they're not supposed to use it for. But it allows me to go to a particular website and fetch information from that website. That has to be, for example, I can go to this website and get table tags, anything that is a table tag, and get it and recreate the table from my own website. So it allows me to just go to a website, fetch a specific session, and bring it into my website. Anyway, so that's what packages are. Just allows you to create a bunch of classes and make it available to others. It also allows others to look at your code and see how you do things and learn from it. Yeah. And just basically learn from how you do things, which is I do that a lot. Um, I look at people's code, I see what they've done, how they've done it, and I learn from it. And sometimes I decide to write my own because whatever they've done will be either too much for my project or not enough for my project. So I was going to show you an example of such thing that I've done. I've decided to write on my own before. I think that's yeah, it's my personal repo. So if I go into my GitHub profile, yeah, this is the thing I had to write myself. I was trying to send emails. The Symfony emailer was too big for the project I was working on, and I didn't want to use the normal PHP mailer. So I decided to write my own sort of a mini package that I can use to send emails. And this is just it. So I can now pull this particular class into my project and use that to be able to send them. I also wrote a documentation here. I could make this available to you. So how to just the advantage of the package I wrote, which I couldn't find in any other package, is I can load actual HTML templates and populate the template with the content of my email and then send the email. And I also made it, I showed you this method last week, which is the chaining method. That's what I use for this package. So that's what packages are. Allows you to, write a bunch of classes, make it available to people, or use what others have already written before. Okay, basically that's what that is. All right, hope that's clear. Any other question on that? Okay,
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
cool. So I will make this available, and I think I'll be giving you an assignment that has to do with your writing your own package, just putting it out there. It's really not difficult. It's quite easy. If you go to the packages, so this is for PHP. PHP's own is packages. Um, NPM, I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, NPM is for JavaScript. I've already shown you, I don't have any JavaScript package, but I have a PHP and Ruby package. I've already shown you what Ruby's package in the platform is. So these platforms are usually called package managers. Like NPM literally stands for Node Package, I think, package manager. Yeah, I think. And packages obviously is for managing PHP packages. So you can go to any of these websites and check specific packages and see how they do things and do it that way, or do your own thing in your own way. Okay. Now, let's go back to our code and see if we can do a bit more cleaning up in the things that we try to do. Now, one of the things I noticed while I was looking at while I was editing the video that we had the last time was this validation does not say if a field is required or not. Okay. So if a field is required at the moment, the field cannot be set to empty string. Right now, we are not currently checking for that. We are not saying, is it required or not? Is it, you understand? If somebody can set an empty string in there, that's very easy to do, but I just wanted to do it anyway to give you an idea of how I would do it. So that means null will no longer be acceptable here because this we've said cannot be null. It means once you check, and this is then there is no point, then don't proceed. Because again, we have said it is a required field. If you don't have this in place, then it is, it fails. It means I will no longer do this. Just bear with me as I proceed with this. I will no longer do this. And the validator will now return back to me either an error or the first name, which is the valid first name. And I think I need to close one other application because of that noise. Let's just close them. All right, cool. So the validator will now test the item that has been sent and return the item back if it is valid, or return an error if it's not valid. Okay, so let's go into this class and check from here now. You can start from here, by the way. Let's remove the try catch. It's not really necessary here. So we can start from here. We can come here and say public mixed data. I'll explain what that is in a minute. So we would have a parameter, a Boolean parameter that says required, and set it to true. So it is always going to be required, but we could say it's not required also. So I would start by saying if this field is required, check. If it is empty, If it is empty, then that's a problem. I don't want to return that. I want to return this. This field is required. And from there, just return false. Okay. If this is this, return that. If this is the return that. Otherwise, return back the string. This is the main difference in what we're doing now. So instead of returning, which means we are no longer doing just Boolean, we're returning either Boolean or a string. Because again, while these guys are returning Boolean, this guy is returning a string. Now, another thing you can do is to make it a bit more uniform and say, okay, I just want to return string every time. In which case you would do this and say, well, you always return back the string. So either there is a problem or not, always return back the string. Okay, so I was just thinking, right, so always return back a string. Then we need to update this guy to do that. Yeah. So if I go back to my index file now, I can say validate that it's a string and it is a required field. Required is true. It's always true. So, you know what? I'm going to make the default false so we can actually set it to true here. And then like I say true, comma, true. And yeah, so that's the main difference. What we've done now is to say every time I use the validator, just return the string back, but then set the error that it's supposed to have if there is an error. And now we are checking here if there is an error. It doesn't matter what has been set by the validator, either the string is set or not. If there's an error, don't do anything, just bring the error and don't proceed. If there's no error, then you can proceed and create the user. So that's another thing I wanted us to add in here, which is to check if something is required or not. We never checked that before. Are there any questions regarding this update that we've done now? Before I go to, I think the last thing I wanted to mention today. All right, let's see if this still works. I do think there'll be an error because of the composer changes I made. Yeah, I expected that error to come. Well, is there any question regarding the things we've done, regarding the videos you've watched and so on? What can I do to this package? How can I improve this package? Well, for one, I need to add documentation, right? And I need to add my GitHub URL, which I have not added. And I need to maybe update the countries that I have. Let me see the countries I have right now. I think I even provide the country flags. Currencies. Okay, I'm just loading from a JSON file, which is this guy. Why is it not opening? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I also add the sign. I had the country name and I add the code. Yeah, and for them to call the country, they can define the name they want. And it returns back. Nice. Very nice. Okay, yeah. If there are no more questions, let me just tell you the last thing I wanted to say regarding the object-oriented program we've been practicing with. So I will be giving you an assignment that will require you to work with OOP. All right, please go on with your question.
Good
Yeah.
evening, sir.
Hi, good evening.
Yes. Mm. I don't know when will this video be uploaded because the first one I missed it. So because of that, I'm entirely lost in everything you're doing in this particular one.
Yeah,
So I don't know when it should be uploaded.
they've already been uploaded. Like
Really?
like 1 week ago.
Check it out.
Yeah,
1 week ago.
I can't remember when, but they've been uploaded. They have been uploaded.
Okay. The
Yeah,
second question, maybe this one is more or less a request.
yeah.
I don't know if it is possible for each assignment or task that we are being given, if there could be something like a correction, based on
The assignment.
the outcome. Yes, because since most of us are just starting newly in terms of this back end development, so we are just as novice as anything. Meaning, for each thing that is being said, sometimes we misunderstood it. But if a correction is being made,
Mm.
I think that will help us a lot.
Yeah, I do think we do corrections now during the live classes. I think we do corrections now, but I will speak with Priska to maybe make it a bit more obvious during the classes. But yeah, I do think we do corrections now. But yeah, thank you for that suggestion. Okay, so one other thing I would like to see you do on your own is rather than doing individual validations like this, you can say, I think there's something wrong. Let me show you what was wrong. I shouldn't have done this. Let's take that out. So that would cause a problem later. Okay. Rather than doing individual validations like this, what you can do is to say, we've created the validator up here. We could then say something. I'm going to just sort of show you what I think. You could say validator, what should we call it? Like settings? Settings. Yeah, we'll say settings. So settings would take what settings we want to apply to each of these things, or rules. Yeah, rules, definitely rules. So validation rules would be like, we could say first name should be required minimum of 15, 15, or maximum of 15, not minimum. Maximum of 15. And what else? We said should be a string. Yeah. Should be a string. And you can say last name should be almost the same thing, I think. We can then say email should be required and it should be an email. Phone number should be numeric. Age should be numeric. Actually, we want to say phone number should be a string, not numeric. Password, did we say minimum of 8? Password 5. We say minimum of 5. We could say minimum of 5. And requires uppercase, requires lowercase, and requires what is that called? Uppercase, lowercase, special characters. Okay, so we could define that. What was the last thing? I think that's all. Yeah, so now we've set the rules to apply to these fields, and then we can then say test to be equal to validator validates the data that was sent. So with this, we could basically get rid of all of this, potentially, in theory anyway, get rid of all of that and say test. If there are any errors in test, print out the errors. If there are no errors, just go ahead and use the user input directly to create a new user, and that would still work. Okay, so we need to comment this out. And sort of, you know what, I'm going to delete all of this. I'll put it back and push this to GitHub and make it available to you. But I just wanted to show you what I think we should have done in the first place. So we need to set the rules. We need to, okay, so we've received the user input. We've set the rules for anything they've sent. We have also actually, one thing was not required earlier. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, we can then run validator to check each of those things and yeah, proceed from there. Let me now sort of show you how I would achieve this that I've just done now. I'll go back to my validator class. I think rules is supposed to be a function. Okay. I'll go in there and say public function rules. Rules takes an array of rules. And this will break down the required rules. apply the right validator and update the error list. Okay. Where is it? Validator. One thing I can also do is to, right. Sorry, my head is working as usual. We're almost done. I'm not going to keep you guys for too long because there's another class. So I could say validator the rules for data and then set the data in here and then say validate, just like this. So in which case I would not need this extra line. Okay. I would then be able to say, I don't need this also. So I've said set the rules to be this and for which data to be this and then run the validator. So let me show you what that is now. We might not need this last thing here. We could just use the rules for this data and use that. Okay, so I'll show you what I'm trying to do. So I've go to the rules. I'll leave this for now. I will create the function, public function for data. It will be an array of user input, which is in this case just called data. This will then set specific things that I need to run the rules for. So I will go here and say public array data. I will say this data will be equal to data, and then return this. Make this static. I've shown you this before, so I don't need to talk too much on this. In which case, I would need to move this to happen before I set the rules. Okay. Right, I would need to do it this way. So now I'm setting the data and I'm running the rules for this particular data. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I couldn't remember when it was posted, but yeah, it's been posted. You can check that out before you come and watch this one later. But just keep following, okay? So you don't get too lost when you start watching that one. All right. So now I've set, say for this particular user input, apply these rules to it. So now it becomes a bit easier because I've now set the input. Now I can say go through the input. So let's think about it. What should I do? Should I firstly separate the rules? Right, I could do it this way. I could say the input. How does the input look like? Let's start with the for each loop. Let's start with the for each. No, it will be for each data. As data. I feel like I'm using data too much. Let's call this raw. So for each data, call it raw. I'll get the rules. I'll get the rules for this particular data. I would say rules to apply, which will be equal to rules and will be, so this will be, I'll need the P and the value now. Let's call it value. And then use the key. Yeah. So this is going to get me the rules that needs to be applied to each data. So let me give an example. Let's go back to our index. We have just like 15 minutes more. In here, the key for first name is called first name. In data, the key for first name is also called first name. So what we are doing is going through each of these things here, getting the key and using that to fetch the rule that should apply to the value that was passed into that particular thing. Okay, so we are going through the data that we've been given. We are getting the key and the value. And now we are saying which rule should I apply to each of the values that have been passed in here. Go on, Hyperon. Go on with your question.
Yes, okay, no, it's an observation. Line 26, you wrote date instead of data.
Oh, good one. Which one? Line 26 here? Or index?
Yeah. Oh, okay, I think it's index. Oh, yeah, this one.
Oh, good. Thanks.
Oh,
That should be data.
all right.
I'll also need to change it here, I guess. Yeah, data. All right, cool. Thanks. Okay, so now that I have gotten the rules that should be applied to this particular value, I can then separate the rules because, as you know, the rules were just, pipe separated rules. Actually, let's make everything pipe separated. I don't want to have to deal with commas or whatever. So pipe separated rules. I don't know how to deal with this yet, but we will see. Okay, so I've got pipe separated rules. I would then need to convert that into array, right? So it will be actual rules to be equal to, I think that will be explode using the pipe. Yeah, so each rule, this becomes an array of rules. Array of rules. So I would then go through for each, right, I'm just thinking about what I'm doing as I'm thinking about it. For each actual rule as rule to now be applied to this value. Now we need an extensive switch statement. If the rule is saying required, I would say if empty, no, I want to use empty, not this crap. If empty, the key data, yeah, this is brilliant. I love how this thing works. Pass that into the errors. Let's go and fetch the error that we've been using and say this field is required. And by the way, yeah, I think I'll create a separate function here and just say it's empty. Yeah, there we go. And create a function in here, add method, and say it's just going to be what we've done already. I'm so sorry, I forgot to make my screen bigger. For those that'll be watching later, I apologize for that. Just try and squint until now. Okay, so let's go back to is empty. I think I've already written it, so I'll just copy it from somewhere and bring it down there. That is this guy. Yep, there we go. So if the rule says required, let's come back here. If the rule is required, then check the value. If it's empty, return the error. Oh shoot, I don't have the field. I could also pass the field. Oh, it's the key now, not the field. Okay, it's the key, no longer the field. Hopefully, I'm not complicating matters. So I could pass the key. I also pass the key here. And then let's go back here and say E. Was it the last one? I think. String E. E is required. And that would do. So this would check if it's an empty thing and had the error there. Let's add a comment in there. Let's add, then let's go back up and actually use it. All right, check this out. So we're going through all the data that was given. We're getting the rules that should apply to that specific one. We're converting those rules into an array. Now we are going through each of the array of rules and applying it to the value that was given. Okay, so we go on and say case. What other rules do we have? String, I think. Again, we just apply what we already let's say nope, this. I keep string and apply that there. If it is a email, so you hopefully you get the points that I'm trying to make here. We just we go through and we're not breaking. I feel like we should. What is wrong with you? Let's go back, please. So we're not breaking because we do want it to go through all these things and apply whatever one is supposed to be applied. And I think it's going to ask us to break. Okay. Yeah, we should definitely break because we should break. Should we break? Maybe a switch statement will not work here because yeah, we should definitely break. Yeah, we should break. Sorry, guys. My brain is just trying to think of the right way to achieve this. Break. Okay, let's see. I think this requires field also, so we need to pass the key in there, which is what the field is at the moment. Okay, that would solve that problem. And then we can also check this. If it's supposed to be numeric, we didn't say number, we said numeric. Then just the thing that we already have is int, and apply it to the value row, and there we go. So yeah, basically this is what I think we should have done. While we have defined each of these guys in here, the uniqueness and the advantage of this is this looks so much neater and much more easier for anybody to understand, because once I land here, I can say, okay, the first name is required, the maximum, oh yeah, let's deal with this maximum now. All right, so if the row, oh, this would be nice. Let's see how we can write a pattern. Can we write a pattern? Pattern match. I don't know if pattern will work for switch case. Preg match, not pattern match. Preg match, if it is if I don't know, I guess we'll just say if it is max, min. If it starts with, yeah, let's do that. If it starts with, where is the thing for saying start? I think it's on 6. So if we start with max and that's, so I'm saying if you start with max or minimum, then hey, it works. Then this splits max min, I guess, add the value in there and then break it. Oh, this is dope. I'm not testing it because I know there will be errors and we don't really have the time to start debugging like we've been doing before. We have 7 minutes left. So, but hopefully you get the mindset of what I'm trying to do. So now we can then split. Wait. So, no, let's call it apply max min, not split. Apply max min. Yep. And then we can go back here and change that also to say apply max min. So basically, because we have defined the maximum and minimum to be in this format, we will need to split the rule and say, oh my God. So we say splitted, split rule to be thank you, and it will not be this, it will be semicolon. Now we have so we now say another where we put return match. We could use match and say split rule. No, we can't do that. We can only say, yeah, the split rule, the first one, right? So the first thing, sorry guys. So if the rule is equal to minimum 10, when we split it, it becomes an array that looks like this, minimum, comma, 10. But we only need the first one, which is why I'm doing this. We only need the first one to know if we're applying minimum or maximum. So if it's if it's minimum, then we apply this, apply max, sorry, apply min, and then we send the value there and send the rule also, which is in this case going to be the count of how many we expect. And if it is maximum, we do the same, and default will be, let's just throw some sort of error. We can't throw false, obviously. We can, however, say something like invalid rule, I guess. Invalid rule. Okay, let's now try and fix all of this. Let's delete this. This requires a comma. Why are you giving me this error? Oh, sorry, this should be apply max. Right, cool. So you will need to create these two functions. This should be a comma, not full stop, not that, and then terminate this. So we need to create these two functions, add that, and add that, and just to sort of make things easier for ourselves, we're just going to return through there and return through here, so I don't have to write everything out. So yeah, basically what we've done is to say, right, for the rules that have been defined here, for each of these keys, we are going into each of them and applying the rules to them. Whatever the rule is, we apply to it. I still can't decide if we need a break here or not, but I'll leave it this way for now and allow you to just make your decision on your own. But anyway, we are checking if, if it's a required field, this will check it and set the proper error. If it is supposed to be a string, this will check it and set the proper error. If it is supposed to be an email, this will check it and set the proper error. Apply max min, there's a typo there. There we go. Apply max min would go in there and say, okay, does the rule ask for maximum or minimum, a specific amount, and send all of that to apply max mix, which will then split the rule and check if it is maximum. If it's maximum, it will apply maximum rule. If it is minimum, it will apply minimum rule. And if it's none of them is set, it will say invalid rule. Set that into the error, which means once all the validation is done, this will print out a more detailed error. In the past, what we had is, once you check first name, it will stop and return the error. Once you check last name, it will stop and return the error. But now it's going to actually check everything and then send back every error message and say, look, your data that you sent to us has this problem, and this problem, and this problem, which is obviously a much more reasonable way to undo errors. So obviously we have uppercase and lowercase set already. We could go back in our validator and say switch again and say case, uppercase. We already have that defined, so it shouldn't be too difficult to just say, well, uppercase, the string. We need to obviously, yeah, let's use this one. Is upper. Yeah, that's better. Yep, there we go. And then we can break that and do lowercase also. This as lower. There we go. Also, this is just upper and this is lower. Sorry, guys, I forgot to close one of my WhatsApp pages. That's the noise you just had now. We also have one last one, which is special character. Let's put that there and say special character and make this as special, I think. Yeah, there we go. Value would be what we'll be testing. Terminate that. Obviously, we need to do a lot of fixing, but the point is, in fact, what we could then do is to make all of this private because there is no other place we'll use them except inside this particular one itself. So the only one that will be public would be this one and this one. The rest should be private because we would only need them in here. Anyone that wants to use this class, we need to go through setting the data and then setting the rules. Okay. Are there any questions? I do need to close the class now. I think that's the message I've been getting. I would push this code to GitHub, hopefully try and finish it up and run some tests and push it to GitHub. Thank you all for attending and for your patience. Unfortunately, I have to go because there's another class that will be happening. I'll make this video available latest by tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Bye.